I brought the original receipt and the notarized copy. She brought a smile as thin as a knife. When the red wine hit her dress in front of everyone, I just said, "I have the receipt." 3 minutes later, she slapped me by the turkey. The neighbor's doorbell camera caught it all. But the real game changer wasn't the video. It was the call from her boss at dawn the next day. The same man she'd spent 10 years flattering was about to hammer the final nail in her coffin. "My name is Scarlett Hale. It's a name I built, not one I inherited. My company, Northline Urban Works, is my own. I carved it out of the unforgiving gray stone of Ravenshore, turning forgotten warehouses and derelict lots into places people wanted to live. Places like the Rivermark Lofts, my flagship. My Sunday afternoon was supposed to be quiet. Just me, a strong coffee, and the final stack of lease applications for Rivermark's penthouse floor. I look for stability, for people who pay on time and respect the foundation. I look for the opposite of my family. The silence of my office was broken by the insistent, angry buzz of my phone on the desk. It wasn't a call. It was a rapid-fire assault of texts. I glanced at the screen. My cousin, Mara. "Check the family group chat, now." My stomach tightened. The family group chat was a digital hellscape I kept permanently muted. A rolling feed of passive aggression, baby photos, and Valerie's manufactured crises. I never checked it, but Mara's urgency was new. I tapped the icon. The screen flooded with images. It was them, all of them. My father's side, Valerie's side. A whole invasive species of aunts, uncles, and step-siblings. They were in my lobby. They were on my roof deck. They were in the penthouse units I was just processing applications for. A badly angled video clip showed them gathered under a massive, professionally printed vinyl banner strung between two columns in the Rivermark lobby. It read, "The Hale Family, Thanksgiving Planning and Legacy Party." My blood ran cold. This wasn't a visit. It was an annexation. Another photo, this one a smug selfie, my stepmother, Valerie Hale, beaming, her arms slung around my father. Behind them, a temporary placard on an easel read, "Rivermark Lofts, a Northline venture. Co-founder, Valerie Hale." Co-founder. The word was a violation. I scrolled faster. The sickness rising. A video clip from my stepbrother, Chase, on the third-floor landing. The one with the exposed brick I'd fought the contractors to preserve. He had a metal tape measure out. "This whole wall comes down," he was saying to my brother-in-law. Cole, perfect for the dual workstation. Cole, meanwhile, was live-streaming the whole thing, panning his phone around. "Just checking out the future studio space. Guys, the acoustics in here are insane. The Hale Empire is expanding." Empire. My empire. I didn't scream. I got very, very still. My hand went to my phone, but I didn't call the group chat. I called Rhett, my building manager. He picked up on the second ring, his voice already cracking. "Scarlett, I was just about to call you. I swear. Your family is here, and why did you let them in? Rhett?" My voice was flat, ice cold. "She had paperwork. Scarlett, your stepmother, Valerie. She had an old EIN registration form for Northline, from when you first started, she said, and a letter, a co-guarantor letter for a bank loan, from maybe 9 years ago. She said she was a silent partner, the original co-founder, and that this was a long-planned corporate event. 9 years ago, the $20,000, the money I'd paid back in 6 months, the money she'd insisted wasn't a loan." My vision blurred for a second, not with tears, but with pure, white-hot rage. He'd let her in with expired, irrelevant paper. He'd given her the master key. "Rhett, listen to me. They are trespassing. You will not engage with them again. Do you understand?" "But Scarlett, she said—" "I don't care what she said." I hung up. My next call was to Nolan Pike, my lawyer. He picked up instantly. "Pike." "Nolan, it's Scarlett. I have an active situation at Rivermark Lofts, a hostile takeover attempt." "A what? Hostile from who? A competitor?" My family. Valerie Hale is on site with about 30 relatives. Claiming to be a co-founder, she used an old EIN form and a 9-year-old expired loan guarantee to get access. They're calling it a legacy party and measuring my walls. There was a heavy sigh on the other end of the line. Nolan had been with me for 5 years. He knew about Valerie. She finally did it, he said quietly. Okay, what do you need? Bring the binder. The green one. I want the current, fully executed operating agreement. The one from 2 years ago naming me as sole member. I want the articles of incorporation, amended. And Nolan? Find the wire transfer receipt, the $20,000 repayment, and the letter of release I made her sign. The family loan letter? You kept it? I kept everything. I made her get it notarized. Meet me there in 15 minutes. I hung up and stood, the adrenaline making my hands shake. I closed my eyes, just for a moment, and I was back in that diner. 9 years ago, I was 20, trying to get my first loan for my first crumbling duplex. The bank had laughed at me. Valerie had slid a cashier's check for $20,000 across the table. A little something to get you started, darling, she'd purred, closing my hand over the check. I'd tried to refuse. My father, Derek, sitting beside her, just smiled weakly. Take it, Scar. It's family, helping family. 6 months later, after I'd flipped that duplex and made a 40% profit, I met her at the same diner. I slid a check for $21,000 back. The principal, I'd said, plus interest. She'd laughed, that light, tinkling laugh that always set my teeth on edge. She pushed the check back. Oh, Scarlett, don't be ridiculous. I told you, family doesn't keep score. I do, I'd said. I pulled a single typed page from my bag, a letter of release, stating the funds were a personal loan, now repaid in full, and that she held no equity, stake, or claim in my fledgling company, Northline Urban Works. She'd rolled her eyes. You are so dramatic. Fine. She signed it with a flourish. We need to get this notarized, I'd said. Her smile had faltered then, just for a second. You don't trust me? I trust paperwork, I'd replied. Now that piece of paper was my shield, that long-buried suspicion, the one that had made me look like a paranoid, ungrateful daughter, was about to become my sword. I grabbed my keys and made 2 more calls on the way to my car. The first was back to Rhett. Rhett, go to the engineering room. Lock every elevator in the building to administrative control. Shut them down. I want them stranded on whatever floor they're on until I get there. Scarlett, I can't just... You let them in. You will lock those elevators. Then you will go to the lobby and wait for me. Do it. The second call was to Sable Security. This is Scarlett Hale, Northline. I have an active trespass situation at Rivermark. I need a 4-man private detail. Executive protection. Non-confrontational removal. 10 minutes. Bill the corporate account. The drive to Rivermark was a 5-minute blur. I left my car in the red zone, right in front of the main doors. I walked into the lobby, and the sound hit me first. Laughter, music, the clinking of glasses. They had set up a champagne table, my champagne, from the tenant lounge cellar. And there, right in the middle of it all, was the banner. The Hale Legacy. Valerie was holding court, a champagne flute in one hand, gesturing expansively at the Italian marble walls I'd paid for, and standing right next to her, smiling, was my father, Derek Hale. He looked happy. He looked proud. He raised his glass as someone took a photo. Oblivious, or worse, complicit. He saw me first. His smile froze. Scarlett, honey, you're here. We were just... The music stopped. The chatter died. 30 pairs of eyes turned to me. I stood there, my keys still in my hand. Valerie turned, her smile practiced, perfect, radiating maternal warmth. Scarlett, darling, you made it. We were just toasting to our new venture. This party is over, I said. My voice didn't sound like my own. It was low, and it carried, "This is private property. You are all trespassing. You have 5 minutes to leave." A shocked silence. An aunt whispered, "How rude." Chase looked up from his phone, annoyed. Valerie just laughed. That same tinkling diner laugh. She walked toward me, adjusting the cuff of her silk blouse. She stopped a foot away, close enough for me to smell her expensive perfume. "Oh, Scarlett," she said, her voice dripping with pity, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Still so dramatic. You will not teach me how to spell my name on my own paperwork." The silence in the lobby was thick enough to cut. Valerie's smirk was cemented on her face, expecting me to cry or scream. She was banking on a scene. She wasn't banking on Nolan Pike. The main glass doors slid open, and Nolan walked in, followed by the four-man team from Sable Security. The Sable guys were quiet, professional, and built like brick walls. They fanned out, creating a perimeter between me and the party. My father flinched, taking an involuntary step back. Nolan didn't look at Valerie. He looked at me. I gave a single, sharp nod. He stepped forward, placing his green leather binder on the marble reception desk. He flipped it open with a precise thud that echoed in the sudden quiet. "Valerie Hale," Nolan said, his voice calm and authoritative. "I am Nolan Pike, counsel for Northline Urban Works, LLC. I don't need to speak to your lawyer." "Scarlett," Valerie snipped, waving a dismissive hand, though a flicker of uncertainty crossed her eyes. "This is a family matter." "This is a corporate matter," Nolan corrected. "And you are trespassing." He slid the first document, protected in a plastic sleeve, across the desk. "This is the amended and restated operating agreement for Northline Urban Works, LLC, filed with the Secretary of State 2 years ago. It names Scarlett Hale as the sole member and 100% equity holder. It was filed 18 months before the acquisition of this property." Valerie scoffed, though her voice was an octave higher. "That's just a piece of paper. I have the original paperwork. Counselor, the EIN, the first loan. I am the co-founder." "You are referring, I assume, to the $20,000 personal loan you extended to Miss Hale 9 years ago?" Nolan asked, his tone polite. He was already pulling the next sheet. He laid it down, a crisp, color copy of a wire transfer confirmation. "This is the receipt for the full repayment of $20,000, wired from Northline's business account to your personal account 8 years and 6 months ago. We also have the corresponding bank statements from both sides." He didn't wait for her to respond. He placed the final document next to it. "And this," he said, his finger tapping the raised, crimped seal in the corner, "is the notarized letter of release you signed on that same day, acknowledging the repayment in full and relinquishing any and all claims, equity, or interest in Northline Urban Works, past, present, and future." I watched her face. The practiced, maternal smile didn't just fade, it collapsed. She stared at the notary seal. She stared at her own flamboyant signature. The color drained from her cheeks. But the company grew," she stammered, looking at my father for support. He just stared at the paperwork, his mouth slightly open. "My money helped it grow, that initial seed." "My forensic accountant already mapped that," I said, speaking for the first time since Nolan arrived. My voice was low and steady. "Nolan?" Nolan produced the final chart, a clean, cold flowchart of assets. "This is the cash flow analysis," he said, addressing the silent, watching family. "It shows that 100% of Northline's growth, including the acquisition and development of the Rivermark lofts, was funded by retained business earnings and conventional loans secured solely by Miss Hale. All revenue was generated after your loan was repaid and your release was signed. Not $1 of your money touched this building." The air went out of the room. My father, Derek, looked pale. Chase had stopped filming. Cole looked at his phone as if it had betrayed him. Nolan closed the binder. The sound was like a gavel. He turned to the head of the Sable detail. "The premises need to be cleared." The security head nodded. He didn't shout. He just spoke, his voice filling the space. "Folks, this is a private event, and you're being asked to leave. Please gather your belongings and exit the building immediately. The tears started then, not quiet, dignified tears. Valerie's specialty, the full-blown, gut-wrenching performance. After all I did for you, she wailed, turning on me, her face twisting. The relatives murmured, grabbing their coats, embarrassed but still hostile. I gave you your start. I loved you like my own. You ungrateful girl. You are nothing without this family. She was moving toward me, her hands clawed. The security guard stepped between us, a polite but immovable object. I just looked at her, over the guard's broad shoulder. The rage was gone, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. The law is speaking now, Valerie, I said. It took 20 minutes, 20 agonizing minutes of muttered insults. She'll regret this. She forgot where she came in from. Slammed doors, and Valerie's histrionics echoing in the marble hall. She had to be helped out by my father. Crying, my company, my legacy. Finally, they were gone. The vinyl Hail Legacy banner was torn down by a sable guard and stuffed unceremoniously into a trash receptacle. I didn't relax. The adrenaline was still pumping, but now it was focused. This wasn't an ending. This was the first move in a war. Nolan, stay, I said. Rhett! My building manager came scrambling out of his office, looking like he was about to be sick. Get a locksmith. Full rekey of the entire building. Every mechanical lock, every unit, every office, every utility closet, now. But Scarlett, that's hundreds of locks. It will cost... I don't care if it costs $100,000. I want it done by morning. Second, deactivate every keycard and fob you issued today, and any master fobs they might have had access to. Issue new, temporary keypad codes for all common areas. Email them to the active tenants only. Third, pull the server room audit logs. I want a complete entry and exit report for the last 48 hours. I want to know exactly which floors they accessed. Rhett just nodded, pale, and ran to his phone. I turned to Nolan. We're going to my office. We have work to do. My office was a violation. They had been in here. Papers on my desk were shuffled. My desk chair was moved. They had left 2 empty champagne flutes on my windowsill. I felt a wave of nausea. I sat at my terminal, logging in with a new password. Okay, Nolan, scan every page. The operating agreement, the amendment, the wire transfer confirmation, the release letter, the accountant's report, every single page. He set up the portable scanner he kept in his briefcase. I opened a new encrypted cloud directory on my private server. I named it, simply, the receipts. As he scanned, I organized. Each file was named, paginated, and time-stamped. I wrote a cover sheet, a simple, 1-page timeline of events, no emotion, just dates, amounts, and legal file numbers. This is my armor, I said quietly, looking at the glowing screen. This is your weapon, Scarlett, Nolan replied, feeding the last page through. My infrastructure was locking down, but the attack wasn't just physical, it was already spreading. I drafted an email. It was a red alert to every building manager in the Northline system. Effective immediately, I wrote. No individual claiming affiliation with Northline Urban Works is to be granted access to any property, mechanical room, or tenant file without direct verbal and email confirmation from me. Scarlett Hale. Any presentation of old paperwork, specifically EIN registrations or loan documents dated prior to 2 years ago, is to be considered fraudulent and reported to corporate immediately. I hit send. Just as I did, my inbox chimed. My stomach dropped. The email was from Mark Bishop at Ravenshore First Bank, my primary lender. Subject: Urgent, Northline Ownership Structure. I read it aloud to Nolan, my voice tight. Scarlett, reaching out regarding a developing situation. We've been forwarded several social media clips that appear to show a large family gathering at Rivermark Lofts, with individuals claiming co-ownership. We're also hearing rumors of a pending legal dispute regarding the original formation of Northline. As you know, our loan covenants are tied specifically to your sole ownership. We need you to verify and confirm the ownership structure immediately. or we may have to place a temporary hold on your credit line." "She went for the bank," I whispered, staring at the screen. "She went for the money. She's trying to choke me off." Before I could even process that, another email came in. This one was from my top leasing agent. Subject: Hold on penthouse leases. Scarlett, bad news. The 3 applicants for the penthouse wing, the big corporate leases, are all pausing. I just got off the phone with 2 of them. They said they saw a disturbance on social media involving a family dispute and saw a clip of Valerie Hale claiming the company was hers. They are worried about the stability of the management. They won't sign until this is resolved. It hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't about a party. This wasn't just about her ego. This was a strategic, multi-front assault. She had failed to take the building physically, so now she was trying to destroy my reputation, sever my credit, and panic my tenants. She had opened a public relations war. I looked at the encrypted folder on my screen. The receipts. Valerie was fighting with whispers, lies, and edited videos. She was fighting with emotion. I wouldn't... "She wants a public fight. Nolan," I said, my hands steady on the keyboard. "She's going to get one, but I'm not bringing feelings." "What are you going to do?" I attached the timeline and the notarized release letter to a new email. "Mark," I typed, replying to the bank. "See attached summary. A full notarized data package is on its way to your legal department via courier. The rumors are false. The result of a coordinated trespass incident. The law is entirely on my side." I hit send. I turned to Nolan. "She's using social media to spread lies. I'm going to use my corporate channels to spread the truth. The notarized, time-stamped, ironclad truth." Nolan and I were still in my office, the sun setting over Ravenshore, when the real war began. The physical assault was over. The digital one was just launching. My phone lit up, this time not with Mara's warnings, but with notifications from platforms I barely used. Valerie had wasted no time. Her Facebook status, switched to public, was a masterpiece of emotional poison. A mother's heart is a fragile thing. It began. Today, my heart was not just broken, it was betrayed by the very person I poured my life into building. We only wanted to celebrate our family legacy and plan for Thanksgiving. The post was accompanied by an album of 20 photos. All of them were from the first 30 minutes of their illegal party. Before I had arrived, Valerie and my father, beaming, cutting a ribbon I didn't authorize, Chase and Cole, arms slung over each other's shoulders, measuring their dreams in the penthouse, the entire extended family toasting with my champagne under the Hale Legacy banner. It looked real. It looked joyful. It looked, to the entire world, like they were the wronged party. The comments section was an avalanche of sympathetic vitriol aimed at me. "I am so sorry. Valerie, this is monstrous." I know her. Scarlett Hale always thought she was better than everyone. How can a daughter do this to her own family? "She's painting me as the usurper," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "It's textbook Darvo," Nolan said, not looking up from his own screen. "Deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. She's the aggressor, but she is claiming to be the victim." "It's worse than a post," I said, my thumb freezing on my screen. "She brought in Chase." My stepbrother had posted a video. It was only 10 seconds long, a shaky, badly lit clip from the lobby confrontation, but it was surgically precise in its deception. In the chaos of them setting up the champagne table earlier, one of the caterers they'd hired had nearly dropped a full tray. Valerie had lunged for it. Right as I was walking through the door, the clip Chase posted was cut to remove the caterer and the spill entirely. It showed only my hand moving forward sharply, an action I took to brace myself against a column and avoid the crash, and Valerie stumbling back, her hand flying to her chest in fake shock. Chase had cut the video right there. He'd made it look like I shoved her. The caption was simple. "This is how she treats her family, heartbroken." That 10-second lie was the accelerant. It was the proof Valerie's narrative needed. By morning, the fire had caught. The Shoreline Ledger, A local gossip blog that masqueraded as news plastered it on their homepage. Hale family feud. Rivermark lofts at center of bitter business dispute. The article was a hatchet job. It quoted Valerie's betrayed mother post verbatim. It embedded Chase's fabricated video. It cited anonymous family sources, no doubt Chase and my brother-in-law, Cole, who claimed I had forcibly locked out the original co-founder and used private security to intimidate my aging parents. My sole legal ownership was dismissed as an aggressive claim that the family intended to dispute vigorously. My phone began to melt. My bank, my insurance agent, my top leasing associate. The lie was spreading faster than the truth ever could. "Okay," I said. "We shut them down, not with emotion, with the law." Nolan didn't sleep. He spent the night drafting. By 6 a.m., we had dispatched cease and desist letters via email and certified courier to the Shoreline Ledger and to the legal departments of every social media platform hosting Chase's video. We did not ask, we demanded. The enclosed video, Nolan's letter stated, is a malicious and verifiably false piece of media. Edited to create a defamatory event that did not occur, it is libel. We attached the full, unedited, time-stamped security footage from the lobby, which clearly showed the caterer, the spilled champagne, and the fact that I never made physical contact with Valerie. We attached the notarized letter of release for the $20,000. We attached the amended articles of incorporation. The Ledger's article, he continued, is based on these false claims and demonstrates a reckless disregard for the truth, which is available via public record. A failure to remove the defamatory content and issue a full retraction within 2 hours will result in immediate legal action for damages. The Ledger folded instantly. The article vanished by 9 a.m., replaced by a terse, one-line statement. A story previously published on this site is under legal review. The social platforms, faced with indisputable video evidence of manipulation, removed Chase's video by noon, citing violations of their terms of service. We had won the battle, but Valerie had already planned for that. The video was gone, but her betrayed mother post was still up. You can't send a cease and desist for someone's feelings. And just as the video disappeared, a dozen new, anonymous accounts popped up. Ravenshore Truth, Hale Family Insider, Justice for Val. They couldn't post the video, so they posted screenshots from the video. They reposted the text of the Ledger article. They kept the narrative alive, seeding doubt and fueling the story that I was a ruthless, violent monster. "We can't play whack-a-mole with burner accounts," I told Nolan. "It's a losing game. She wants to fight in the mud. I'm going to take this to the boardroom." I spent the rest of the day building a fortress. I called my web development team. "I need a secure data room, live in 1 hour, a password-protected subdomain on the Northline corporate site. I want it clean, professional, and cold. No branding, just facts." We called it the Receipts Portal. It wasn't for the public, it was for my stakeholders, my investors, my lenders, my high-value tenants, my contractors. It was my counter-offensive, and it was devastatingly beautifully boring. There were no feelings, there were no accusations, there was just a timeline. Event, initial seed loan, amount, $20,000, document, scanned notarized letter of full repayment and release of interest, signed by Valerie Hale. Event, Northline Reincorporation, sole member, date, 2 years ago, document, filed articles of amendment, Secretary of State certification, event, Rivermark Lofts acquisition, document, forensic accountant's cash flow analysis, showing 0% family investment, event, trespass incident at Rivermark Lofts, document, full, unedited security footage from all lobby and roof cameras, document, cease and desist letter sent to Shoreline Ledger. It was sterile. It was clinical. It was ironclad. I drafted a simple email and sent it to my entire professional network. Subject, transparency regarding Northline operations. You may have heard rumors regarding the ownership of Northline Urban Works. I wrote. In the interest of full and urgent transparency, we have compiled all relevant legal and financial documentation into a secure portal. Your access credentials are below, as always. My business is built on boundaries and facts. The response was immediate and bifurcated. Two of my smaller, more skittish investors paused their next round of funding. This is messy, Scarlett, one wrote. We need to let our legal team review this. I expected it. But then, an email from my largest institutional partner, a man who managed $1 billion fund. His reply was 2 sentences. Miss Hale, thank you for the urgent transparency. This is how professionals handle a crisis. Our wire for the next phase will proceed as scheduled. He had seen the receipts. The truth worked. My staff rallied. My head of development, my leasing agent, and my finance controller met me in the conference room. We saw the portal. Scarlett, my controller said, her arms crossed. We knew it was garbage. We're with you. What's next? That evening, a new email. It was from one of the 3 penthouse tenants who had paused, a young tech CEO. Miss Hale, I reviewed your data portal. I've never seen a landlord, or anyone, move with that much clarity. It gives me more confidence in your management, not less. Please send over the lease. I'm signing tonight. I had stopped the bleeding. I had rerouted the narrative from the gutter to the spreadsheet. But Valerie wasn't done. She had lost the legal battle and the data battle, so she went back to the only weapon she had left, her victimhood. Mara texted me late that night. It was a screenshot of an email from a local TV producer. Valerie Hale has contacted Channel 7 News. She's booked an exclusive, in-studio interview for the morning of Thanksgiving. The segment is titled, My Daughter Stole My Company, A Holiday Betrayal. She was going nuclear. A live television audience, right before the holiday. She would cry. She would wave that 9-year-old, irrelevant AN form. She would talk about a mother's love and a child's cruelty. She would assassinate my character on live TV. We can't let her do that unanswered, Nolan said, pacing my office. We have to issue a statement. We have to buy our own airtime. Demand equal time. No, I said. She wants me to brawl with her on the 6 o'clock news. She wants to turn this into a reality show. I won't. I picked up my phone. I didn't call Channel 7. I called a different number. Hi, Emily, I said, my voice calm. This is Scarlett Hale. I know you've been asking me to come on Capital Current for months. How would you feel about recording a special episode? I want to talk about the critical importance of boundaries, paperwork, and the dangers of mixing family with finance in modern business. Capital Current wasn't a local news segment. It was a nationally respected business podcast. Its listeners weren't daytime TV rubberneckers. They were investors, CEOs, and entrepreneurs. Valerie could have the spectacle. I would take the credibility. As I hung up, satisfied, I scrolled one last time through the comments on one of the burner accounts. The same bile, the same lies. But then, one comment, different from the others, buried deep in the thread. It was an anonymous user. This is nothing. Ask Valerie Hale about the commissions she took on the Glendale project at Whitford Civic Trust. She's been pulling this for years. My breath caught. The Whitford Civic Trust. Her employer. A place she'd worked for a decade. Managing community development funds. I screenshotted the comment. I saved it. Nolan looked at me. Are you going to use it? No, I said, closing my phone. Not yet. That's not my fight. It wasn't time to burn down her house. I was still too busy protecting my own. I didn't want to go. Every instinct told me to stay home, to lock my doors, to spend Thanksgiving with a bottle of wine and the Rivermark balance sheets. But my father had called, his voice thin and hollow. Please, Scarlett, just for dinner. It's Thanksgiving. Don't let this ruin the family. Just come, please. He was weak, and I knew it, but his weakness was a trap. If I didn't go, Valerie would spin it. She abandoned her own father on Thanksgiving. If I did go, I was walking into the lion's den. I chose the den, but I didn't go unprepared. The moment I walked into my father's house, the air was thick with performance. It wasn't a home. It was a set. The entire rogues gallery from the Rivermark incident was there, clustered in whispering groups, nursing glasses of champagne. When I entered, the whispers stopped. And the phones came out. They didn't even try to hide it. Chase, Cole, my step-aunts, they propped them on the mantel. They laid them on the coffee tables, lenses pointed at the dining room. They were waiting for the show. My father gave me a brittle, desperate hug. "I'm so glad you came." Valerie glided over, a vision in cream-colored cashmere. Her smile was one of supreme, pitying forgiveness. "Scarlett, darling, you made it. We were all so worried about you." We sat for dinner. The tension was a living thing at the table, a hungry ghost waiting to be fed. I ate my turkey. I passed the salt. I said nothing. Then, Valerie stood up. She tapped her glass with a knife. The phones all shifted, angling toward her. "I'd like to make a toast," she said, her voice brimming with manufactured emotion. "To family. The most important thing in the world. The only thing that lasts. And to the future of our family's legacy." She raised her glass high, looking directly at me, her eyes glittering. "To the Hale and Son Company." Hale and Son. Not Hale and Daughter, not Northline. She was erasing me and replacing me with Chase in one breath. The room was quiet. I didn't raise my glass. Instead, I reached into my purse. I pulled out a single, white, legal-sized envelope. I placed it on the table, right next to my untouched wine glass. "Scarlett, don't," my father hissed. I pushed the envelope across the polished wood. Gently, it slid past the centerpiece and stopped directly in front of Valerie's plate. She looked at it, her smile faltering. The actress was gone, just for a second. She put her glass down. Her nails clicked as she picked up the envelope and tore it open. The relatives leaned in. Chase visibly raised his phone, no longer pretending. She pulled out the papers. I watched her eyes scan the first page. The amended and restated operating agreement. Her eyes narrowed. The second page, the wire transfer confirmation for $20,000. The third page, the notarized letter of release, with her own flamboyant signature at the bottom. Her face, for one brief, exquisite moment, was naked. It was pure, distilled hatred. Then the mask snapped back on. She laughed, a short, ugly bark. "What is this, Scarlett?" she sneered, tossing the papers onto the table, spattering them with gravy. "More of your pathetic little games? More of your childish paperwork?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't look at anyone else. I spoke clearly, into the silence, as if dictating a memo. "That is the notarized release you signed 9 years ago. This is the wire transfer confirmation. Transaction ID ending in 905 for $20,000, which cleared your bank on April 12th of that year." I leaned forward, just slightly. "That is the amended corporate charter, filed with the Secretary of State, file number 338, naming me as sole owner. You are not a co-founder. You are not a partner. You are not an officer. You have zero stake in my company. I brought the receipts." The silence in the room was absolute. It was a vacuum. My father jumped to his feet, his chair scraping loudly. "Scarlett, Valerie, please, it's Thanksgiving. Let's just have a nice dinner." "You!" Valerie shrieked. The mask was gone. This wasn't the performer. This was her. Her voice was a raw wound. "You did this to embarrass me. In my own home. In front of my family." "This is my father's home," I said, my voice ice. "And you embarrassed yourself when you trespassed in my building." It happened faster than I could process. She grabbed her glass of red wine, not to drink, but to throw. She lunged, her arms swinging back. I instinctively threw myself backward, my chair tipping over and crashing to the floor. The wine arced through the air, splashing across my shoulder and hitting the dining room wall. The glass slipped from her grasp and shattered on the hardwood. And in that split second of chaos, with wine dripping from my hair and relatives gasping, she lunged again. Her hand, bare, cracked across my face. The sound was sharp, A gunshot in the small room. It echoed. My cheekbone exploded with a white-hot, stinging pain. There was no sound at all, just the ringing in my ears. I saw my father, his face a mask of horror. I saw the relatives, frozen. And I saw Chase, his phone held rock steady, the red recording light on. He had captured every frame. The silence was broken by the doorbell. Ding-dong. A loud, insistent chime. Then again, ding-dong. One of my step-aunts, flustered, went to answer it. "This is not a good time," she started to say. It was our old neighbor, Mr. Henderson, from 2 doors down. He was standing on the porch in his cardigan, looking bewildered. Is everything all right over here?" His voice drifted into the silent room. We heard screaming, and my wife, she thought she saw someone get hit, right through the window. Valerie froze. Her hand was still raised. She looked from me, to the open door, to the phone still clutched in Chase's hand. And I saw it, right above Mr. Henderson's gray head, the small, black and silver circle of his new doorbell camera. Its blue light was on. It was recording. Valerie's face contorted. The implications were all landing at once. The witnesses, the cameras. A new sound tore from her throat. A scream. But this one was for the audience. It was directed at the open door, at the neighbor, at the camera. "She attacked me," Valerie wailed, pointing a shaking finger at me. "My daughter. She came into my home and she attacked me. She's trying to steal my company. The company is mine. Get out of my house." I didn't say another word. I calmly stood up, righting my chair. I picked up my purse from the floor. I walked past my father, who was standing like a statue, his mouth open. I walked past the relatives, who were staring, horrified, but utterly fascinated. I walked out the front door, past a stunned Mr. Henderson. I didn't run. I walked to my car and drove away. I didn't go home. I drove straight to the 24-hour urgent care clinic on 7th Street. It was quiet, smelling of disinfectant and stale coffee. "I need to be seen," I told the triage nurse. "I was just assaulted." A doctor examined me in a bright, sterile room. The red welt on my cheek was already darkening, a perfect handprint. My jaw throbbed. He shined a light in my eyes. He documented the injury, the location, the size. He noted the wine stains on my blouse. "Have you been drinking tonight, ma'am?" he asked, his voice neutral. "No," I said. "I haven't had a single drink. Can you please run a blood alcohol test? I need it for the report." He looked at me, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. He nodded. "I can do that." I called Nolan from the parking lot, the fluorescent lights of the clinic buzzing behind me. "She did it, Nolan. She slapped me." "What?" His voice was sharp, instantly awake. "She slapped me at the dinner table, in front of 20 people. It's on camera, at least 2. Chase's phone and the neighbor's doorbell cam." "Are you okay, Scarlett?" "I will be. I'm at the urgent care on 7th. I'm getting a full medical report, and I'm getting a blood alcohol test." "Good," he said, his voice hard. "Stay there. I'm sending a paralegal to get a copy of the report and take your sworn statement. I'm dispatching an investigator to a Mr. Henderson's house to secure a copy of that doorbell footage tonight. We'll subpoena the phone clips from every relative in that room tomorrow. Go home. Scarlett, lock your doors. We preserve everything." I drove to my own apartment, not the loft. I locked the deadbolt and leaned against the door in the dark, and only then did I allow my hands to shake. An hour later, my phone lit up, a new post from Valerie. This one was frantic, sloppy. "The nightmare continues. My ungrateful daughter came to my home on Thanksgiving. Drunk and violent, she attacked me, and I was forced to defend myself in my own home. We are all heartbroken. Please pray for our family." It was a desperate, stupid lie. 30 minutes after that, an email notification popped up. The urgent care portal. My results were in. I opened the PDF. Medical report. Scarlett Hale. Chief complaint. Assault. Details. Red contusion. Left zygomatic arch. consistent with blunt force trauma from an open hand. And at the bottom of the page, toxicology screen, blood alcohol content, 0.00%. I forwarded the PDF to Nolan. Subject: add this. I turned off my phone. The adrenaline was gone, leaving only a deep, cold, aching exhaustion. I sat in the dark for hours. Just after midnight, I couldn't stand the silence. I turned the phone back on. It flooded with notifications, a dozen missed calls from my father, which I ignored. But there was one voicemail, from a number I didn't recognize, a private number. I pressed play. The voice was male, older, with a clipped, precise accent I didn't recognize. It wasn't my father. It wasn't Nolan. The message was one sentence long. Miss Hale, my name is Graham Whitford. I am Valerie's boss. I think you and I need to have a meeting. I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark with my throbbing cheek and the echo of that one-sentence voicemail. My name is Graham Whitford. I am Valerie's boss. I called Nolan back at 4 a.m. Who is Graham Whitford? I heard him typing, his voice gravelly from lack of sleep. Graham Whitford, CEO, Whitford Civic Trust. He's big, Scarlett, very big. The trust is a quasi-public fund. They finance major urban infrastructure, parks, public transit initiatives, parking structures. They're the money behind half the new development in Ravenshore. Why? He called me, I said. He wants to meet. When? In 2 hours. I hung up, showered, and put on the closest thing I had to armor, a dark charcoal pantsuit and a silk shell. I drank 2 cups of black coffee, my hand steady. The bruise on my cheek was a dark, ugly purple, a galaxy of broken blood vessels. I covered it with foundation, not to hide it, but to control it. I would not walk into this meeting looking like a victim. He had named a small, 24-hour diner on the industrial side of town, far from the polished glass towers of downtown. When I walked in at 10 minutes to 6, the place was empty except for a few graveyard shift workers and one man in a perfectly tailored overcoat, sitting in a back booth. He stood as I approached. He was in his late 50s, with steel gray hair and a face that looked like it had been carved from granite. He was the physical opposite of my father's weak indecision. Miss Hale, he said, his voice the same clipped, precise one from the voicemail. He didn't offer to shake my hand. He just nodded at the booth. Thank you for coming. He slid a business card across the Formica table. Graham Whitford, CEO, Whitford Civic Trust. I will be direct, he said, as the waitress poured me a coffee I didn't want. I requested this meeting off the record because I am in a delicate position, and I suspect, so are you. Everything we are discussing is highly sensitive. I understand, I said. You're Valerie's boss. I am, he said, his eyes unwavering. And for the last 6 months, your stepmother has been a growing liability to my organization. This is not about your family dispute. This is about the integrity of my trust. I waited. I didn't speak. I just watched him. We've had a number of internal complaints, he continued, his voice low, whispers, suggestions of impropriety, unethical influence, but they were just whispers, hard to pin down. Then, on Sunday, my compliance officer got an alert, one of our server flags. Valerie was attempting to access and download proprietary financial models for a project she is not assigned to, a project she is, in fact, firewalled from. He paused, letting that sink in. And then, he said, his eyes flicking for just a second to the concealer on my cheek. Thanksgiving happened, the public accusations, the videos, the reports of a physical altercation. The police were called. Miss Hale, a wellness check at your father's house, prompted by the neighbor. It's now a public incident, and Valerie is the face of my community outreach. He leaned forward. My organization's reputation is built on public trust. We cannot have a senior director involved in a public, violent, and frankly, sordid brawl over assets. Your Thanksgiving meltdown, as the blogs are calling it, was the red whistle. It moved her from a personnel problem to an active crisis. I finally spoke. my voice steady. Mr. Whitford, with all due respect, what you've described is still a personnel problem for you, and a personal one for me. I don't see the overlap. His eyes hardened. Then let me draw the map for you. For 3 months, the Whitford Civic Trust has been in final stage negotiations with the city of Ravenshaw to finance and construct a new 400-space public parking garage, a $30 million civic project. The proposed location is on Dock Street. He let the name hang in the air. Dock Street, the street bordering the east wall of my building. It's the Rivermark Lofts project, Miss Hale, he said flatly. The garage is the key piece of infrastructure your high-density tenants have been demanding. It's the linchpin that makes your entire development viable for long-term corporate leases. My blood ran cold. I hadn't connected them. The city project. Valerie's job. Valerie, he said, is on the planning committee that reviews and recommends contractors for all civic trust projects. And your stepmother has been claiming to her colleagues for the last week that she is a silent co-owner of the Rivermark Lofts. It hit me. A conflict of interest. A catastrophic conflict of interest, he corrected. If she is, as she claims, a co-owner, she is legally barred from being anywhere near the approval process. If she is not a co-owner, as you claim, then she is lying to her superiors in an attempt to leverage her position. Either way, she has compromised a $30 million public deal. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a single, folded piece of paper. He slid it across the table. It was a printout of an internal email. From Valerie Hale. To the Contractor Review Board. Subject, Suggestion for Dock Street Project. I've been reviewing the preliminary bids, and I think we should strongly consider prioritizing Northline Construction. I have a personal relationship with their principal, Chase Hale, and can vouch for his efficiency and discretion. I think he would be an excellent fit for the project. Northline Construction, Chase's two-bit contracting company, the one he ran out of his garage, a company with no assets, no insurance, and no experience. She wasn't just trying to steal my building. She was trying to use my building's reputation to funnel a massive city contract to her son. She's insane, I whispered. The audacity of it, the sheer criminal recklessness. She's desperate, Graham said, and desperation makes people sloppy. I pushed the email back. I felt sick. This was so much bigger than a family fight. This was fraud. This was conspiracy. I don't want to be involved in this. Mr. Whitford, I said, and I was surprised to find I meant it. I am not interested in a back-alley deal to get my stepmother fired. My fight with her is a legal one. It's about property and assault. I have my lawyer. I have my receipts. I am handling it through the courts. I made to stand up. I suggest you handle your employee through your own human resources department. Do it by the book. Sit down, Miss Hale, he said. It wasn't a request. I sat. I appreciate your position, he said, a flicker of something new in his eyes. Maybe respect. I am not here to offer you a back-alley deal. I am here to propose a formal process. I am convening a meeting this morning with our Chief Compliance Officer and our General Counsel. We are opening a formal ethics investigation into Valerie Hale. Then do it, I said. You don't need me for that. We do, he said. Your lawyer, Mr. Pike, sent a cease and desist to the Shoreline Ledger based on certain documents, an operating agreement, a notarized release, a cash flow analysis. My legal team would very much like to see those documents, officially, as part of our investigation. He was offering me a second front in this war, the courts, and now, her employer. You'll have them, I said. Nolan will courier a full certified binder to your general counsel's office this morning. Good, he nodded, satisfied. He started to close his briefcase, then stopped. He looked at me, a long, calculating look. Just so we are clear on the stakes, he said, his voice dropping even lower. I am not just building a case based on emails. We have other, more definitive proof of her state of mind. It seems she has a habit of boasting. He tapped his phone, which was on the table, He didn't play a file, but I knew what he meant. She was recorded, Miss Hale, at a donor luncheon 3 weeks ago, bragging to another director about how she was about to reclaim her stake in a major downtown property. She bragged about how she still held the strings from the original EIN paperwork. She laughed about how her stupid, ungrateful stepdaughter would soon learn who was really in charge. He leaned back. A recording of a senior director at a public trust, plotting to use 9-year-old, invalid paperwork to seize a private asset, would be devastating. To her, of course, but also to my trust's reputation. If it got out, it suggests our internal controls are a joke. He was showing me his cards. He had his own receipts. He was telling me, without saying it, that he had the power to destroy her, and he would use it to protect his company. The question was whether I would align with him. I stood up, and this time, he let me. I looked down at him, at this powerful, cold man who had just become the most dangerous and unpredictable piece on the board. "Mr. Whitford," I said, "I don't trade information. I submit documentation. My lawyer will be in touch with your lawyer. You'll get everything you need to follow your process." He looked up at me, and for the first time, he smiled. It was a thin, cold, satisfied smile. "That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say," he said. "Then I'll let our compliance department do their part." I left the diner with the sun just beginning to cut through the gray Ravenshore morning. The meeting with Graham Whitford had changed the board entirely. This was no longer a two-player game. I had a new, powerful, and ruthless potential ally. But I would not rely on him. I would rely on my own structures. I called Nolan before I even started the car. "I'm on my way to the office. I met with Whitford." "I'm already here," he said, "and I've already filed." "Filed what?" "The assault was the trigger. Scarlett, the trespass was civil. The slap was criminal. And her public lies about your BAC are provable defamation. We're not defending anymore. We are attacking. I filed for an emergency protective order an hour ago, barring Valerie Hale, Chase Hale, and Cole Rivington from coming within 500 feet of you, your home, or any Northline Urban Works property. I attached the medical report, the 0.0 blood alcohol test, and Mr. Henderson's sworn affidavit from last night. I merged into traffic, my hands steady on the wheel. Good. What's next? The legal hold. It's going out by courier in the next 10 minutes. To every single person who was at that dinner. My investigator got the full list from your father's social media. It's a legal requirement for them to preserve all evidence, every text message, every email, and most importantly, every single video clip recorded in that house. Chase's phone is now a piece of evidence in a civil and potential criminal proceeding. If he deletes that video, it's spoliation of evidence, and I will have him sanctioned so fast his head will spin. This was the counteroffensive, not just a shield, but a sword. When I got to the office, Nolan had 2 documents on my desk. "This is our public move," he said. I picked up the first page. It was a draft for the Northline corporate website. It wasn't an emotional plea. It was titled, "Statement of Fact Regarding Northline Urban Works, LLC." It was the coldest, most beautiful thing I'd ever read. It was a simple, bulleted list. On date 9 years ago, a personal loan of $20,000 was extended by Valerie Hale to Scarlett Hale. On date 8 years ago, said loan was repaid in full via wire transfer, transaction ID 905. Attached, Doc A, notarized letter of release, signed by V. Hale, relinquishing all claims. On date 2 years ago, Northline Urban Works, LLC was rechartered with Scarlett Hale as sole member. Attached, Doc B, filed articles of amendment, Securo State File 338. On date 3 weeks ago, Northline properties were illegally accessed. The trespassers were removed. On Thanksgiving, a physical assault occurred against Ms. Hale. Attached, Doc C, medical report, case ID 774, documenting injuries. Attached, Doc D, toxicology report, 0.00% BX. It doesn't accuse her of anything, I said quietly, reading it again. It just states what happened. It doesn't have to accuse, Nolan said. The documents do the accusing. We are not engaging in the he said, she said. We are establishing a public, verifiable record. This statement is for our investors, our tenants, and the media. It points directly to the new data room. The investor data room, I said, logging into my terminal. We'd rebuilt it overnight. It was no longer just the receipts portal. It was a fortress. It now included a time stream of every major transaction Northline had ever made. Bank statements, cash flow maps, everything. It was designed for one purpose, to be audited, to prove, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that every dollar in the company was my own. I hit publish on the statement of fact. It was live. The next few hours were a blur of coordinated action. Nolan couriered the full binder to Graham Whitford's general counsel. Fulfilling my promise, I emailed the link to the new statement of fact to my entire professional network, including my bankers and the penthouse tenants. The first domino fell at 2 p.m. An email from the lead auditor at my largest investment fund, the one who had gone silent. Ms. Hale, it read, my team and I have spent the morning cross-referencing your new data room with the documents your lawyer filed in court. We have audited the cash flow from the date of the loan repayment. Your records are immaculate. The fund's managing partner sends his apologies for the pause. He has authorized the immediate release of the next capital tranche and asked me to convey his admiration for your documentation strategy. I closed my eyes. The first pillar was secure. The second domino fell an hour later. The Shoreline Ledger, the blog that had roasted me, posted a new story. It was a full, groveling retraction. An update on the Hale dispute, the title read. The Shoreline Ledger has been provided with court-filed documents, including a notarized release and certified corporate filings, which contradict our previous reporting. These new verified documents confirm Scarlett Hale as the sole legal owner of Northline Urban Works. We have also received a copy of a medical report confirming Ms. Hale was the victim of an assault. We retract our previous story and apologize for the error. They had seen the receipts. They had seen the medical report. They ran for the hills. I should have felt victorious, but I knew Valerie. She didn't retreat. She escalated. The silence from her side was deafening. It broke at 4 p.m. My phone rang. It was Nolan. She did it, he said, and for the first time, I heard real anger in his voice. She hired Rance Kitteridge. I knew the name. Kitteridge was a pit bull, a scorched-earth litigator who specialized in messy, high-profile divorces and partnership dissolutions. He didn't argue facts. He created chaos. What did he do, Nolan? He just filed an ex parte motion for an emergency temporary restraining order, not against you, against Northline. He's petitioning the court to freeze every single one of your operating accounts. The blood drained from my face. He can't. On what grounds? He's claiming you're a flight risk. He's claiming the assault on Thanksgiving was you attacking her, and that it's proof of your instability. He's arguing that you are now dissipating corporate assets, that's our data room, in a criminal conspiracy to defraud his rightful co-founder. He's telling the judge you're about to liquidate the company and flee the country. He wants a full freeze, effective immediately, pending a full trial. This was the kill shot. If a judge granted that, even for 24 hours, Northline was dead. Payroll would bounce. My contractors would walk. My new capital from the investors would be frozen. My bank would call my loans. It was brilliant. It was vicious. When is the hearing? I asked, my voice a whisper. There is no hearing, Scarlett. That's what ex parte means. He's in chambers with a judge right now, trying to get it signed without us in the room. Then what do we do? We pray the judge is smart, Nolan said grimly. And we fight back. I'm filing our opposition right now. But if that judge signs the order before he reads my filing, it's over. I hung up the phone. I stood in my office at Rivermark Lofts, the building I had built, and I was utterly, completely paralyzed. This was the one receipt I didn't have. I couldn't control a judge's mind. The silence lasted for 57 minutes. It was the longest hour of my life. My phone buzzed on the desk. Nolan's name. I snatched it. Nolan? He read it, Nolan said. He was breathing heavily. The judge read my opposition before he ruled. And? He didn't just deny it. Scarlett, he denied it with prejudice. I sank into my chair. English, Nolan? He didn't just say no. He said hell no. He read Valerie's request. Then he read our response. He saw the notarized release. He saw the amended operating agreement. He saw the medical report and the 0.0 back. Nolan took a deep breath, and I could hear the smile in his voice. The judge issued a warning. He warned Kitteridge, on the record, that his motion was frivolous, vexatious, and borderline abusive. He warned him that if he files one more motion based on the disproven co-founder claim, he will be sanctioned for abusing the court's time and ordered to personally pay all of Northline's legal fees. He tore him apart. It was a total victory. Kitteridge had fired his biggest cannon, and the judge had turned it around and fired it right back at him. I stayed late. I watched the sun set over the city. My social media was still a mess, but the tone was shifting. The anonymous burner accounts were still screaming, but now, other voices were creeping in. Did you see the ledger's retraction? Her lawyer filed the receipts in court. It's public record. The judge threw out the motion to freeze the company. Read the filing. Valerie was still fighting with hysteria. I was fighting with documents, and for the first time, the public was starting to see the difference. I pulled up the empty file for the upcoming hearing. The emergency was over. The motion to freeze my life had failed. But the main event, the full-body hearing on the protective order and the harassment claim, was still scheduled for the week after Thanksgiving. We're ready, I said to the empty room. Let's go to court. The win against Rance Kitteridge gave me air to breathe. But it didn't end the war. It just forced Valerie to change her tactics. The ground war for my property had failed. The legal attempt to freeze my assets had failed. Now, she pivoted to a war of attrition. She was going to make so much noise that I would have to pay her to be quiet. My phone buzzed 2 days later, a text from Mara, my cousin. It was the first time I'd heard from her since the day of the trespass. I braced myself for an attack, but it was just 3 screenshots. They were from the Hale Extended Family group chat, the one I had left. The timestamps were from the night the judge had thrown out Valerie's motion. Valerie's message was frantic. The judge is clearly biased. Kitteridge says the receipts Scarlett's team filed are confusing the issue. This isn't working. A step-aunt replied, "What do we do now, Val?" Valerie's response made my blood run cold. "We can't win in court right now. We have to win in public. We have to make this so messy, so loud, that her investors get spooked. We apply pressure until she has to pay us to go away. I want a settlement. I want my name recognized." A settlement? She wanted me to pay her for the privilege of her attacking me. I saved the screenshots. I forwarded them to Nolan. This was no longer about a claim. It was about extortion. While the family conspiracy was crude, the corporate one I had stumbled into was far more dangerous. The next morning, an email landed in my company's general info inbox. It was from a disposable, anonymous email address. The subject line, "Compliance Information, Whitford Civic Trust." My assistant flagged it as urgent and sent it straight to me. "I am a junior employee at the trust," it began. "I cannot use my name. I was in a planning meeting for the Dock Street parking project. Valerie Hale was there. She was pushing for a contractor. Northline Construction, run by her son Chase. When the procurement officer questioned his total lack of experience for a project this size, Valerie suggested he could show his appreciation with a 10% thank you bonus back to the Trust's community fund, which she personally manages. It was a kickback. She was soliciting a bribe, right in the open. She is poisoning this company. Please do something. A 10% kickback. She was using my building's proximity to the project as leverage, not to steal my company, but to funnel a city contract to her son, and then to take a cut of that contract herself. This was the anonymous comment from the blog, now delivered to me as a formal complaint. I thought of Graham Whitford's cold smile in that diner. He was waiting. I knew what he wanted me to do. He wanted me to get in the mud, to leak this, to use it as a weapon in my own case. I would not. I forwarded the complete, untouched email to a single address, the office of the General Counsel at the Whitford Civic Trust, the same man Nolan had already sent my binder to. My subject line was simple: FYI, received at my public intake address. I added no commentary. I offered no collaboration. I just passed the weapon to the man who already had his finger on the trigger. I was submitting a receipt. What the trust did with it was their business. The pressure was clearly getting to them, because the family's desperation was making them sloppy. While Valerie was busy soliciting bribes, Chase was committing felonies. My head of procurement for Rivermark called me. His voice tight. "Scarlett, you need to see this. Our high-end furniture vendor for the penthouse lobby just called me." He was confused. He said he'd already spoken to our head of procurement, Mr. Chase Hale, and was working up a quote. What? The supplier forwarded me the email. Chase contacted him directly. He was using forged Northline Urban Works letterhead. Scarlett, he faked my signature. He was trying to order $50,000 worth of designer furniture, claiming it was for the Rivermark family expansion, and trying to get it billed to our corporate account. He wasn't just impersonating an officer. He was trying to steal $50,000 worth of property, using my own company's credit. I had the supplier forward the entire email chain. The fake letterhead was good, but not perfect. He'd gotten the font wrong. "Nolan," I said, forwarding him the file. "Shut this down, hard." Nolan's response was not a cease and desist. It was a formal criminal warning letter, sent by courier to Chase and to his lawyer, Rance Kitteridge. "This correspondence serves as notice," it read, "that your client has engaged in felony-level forgery, identity theft, and attempted wire fraud. We have preserved all digital and physical evidence. If your client contacts one more Northline vendor, partner, or employee, this file will be turned over to the Ravenshore District Attorney's Office. Govern yourself accordingly." The conspiracy was cracking. They were amateurs playing a professional game, and they were bleeding evidence from every pore. I had the text messages. I had the kickback email. I had the forgery attempt. I had all the receipts, except one. The first one, the origin story. To truly end this, I had to neutralize my father. Valerie was growing more desperate. I could see her posts. She was sensing the shift, the loss of control, and it was making her more erratic. She was afraid of losing face, and my father was terrified of her. I called him. He picked up on the fifth ring, his voice a panicked whisper. "Scarlett?" "I'm at the diner on Mill Street," I said, my voice flat. "The one where I paid her back. I'll be here for 1 hour." I hung up. He showed up 20 minutes later. He looked awful. His face was gray, and he looked like he hadn't slept since Thanksgiving. "What is this, Scar? Rance told us not to talk to you. Valerie will be—" "I don't care about Valerie." I slid a small black moleskin notebook across the table. It was my very first business ledger, from 9 years ago. I had him open it to the page I'd bookmarked. The entry was dated April 12th. Repayment to V. Hale, $20,000, and in the margin, in a different pen, were 2 signatures, mine and his. Witness, Derek Hale. He stared at his own name. His hands were shaking. "You were there," I said. "You watched me hand her the check. You watched her sign the release letter, and you signed my notebook as a witness." He looked up at me, his eyes watery and darting toward the door, as if she might materialize. "I remember. I do, honey. I remember. But, Valerie, she said that was just a temporary note. She said it was just so you felt independent. She said the real agreement, the family agreement, was that she was always a partner, that the paper didn't matter." He had been gaslit for 9 years. He had allowed her to rewrite the history he had personally witnessed. "She lied to you," I said. I slid the next documents across the formica, the bank statement, showing the check cashed and cleared, and the notarized, county-stamped, fully executed release letter. "This is not a temporary note. Dad, this is a notarized legal document. This is a bank record. The law does not have a family agreement clause. The law does not have a gray area. It has this. It has the receipt. She has been lying to you, and she used you to lie to me." He stared at the papers. He traced the notary's raised seal with his fingernail. He looked at his signature in my notebook. He looked at her signature on the release. He was quiet for a long, long time. "She's going to destroy me," he finally whispered. "She already is," I said. "She's destroying you. She's destroying my company, and she's destroying herself. It's over. But I need to end it. Legally. I need your testimony." I pulled the last paper from my bag. It was an affidavit, drafted by Nolan. It was 1 page long. It stated, simply, that he, Derek Hale, was present on April 12th, 9 years ago, that he witnessed the repayment of the $20,000 loan, and that he understood this repayment to be final, complete, and concluding all financial ties between Valerie Hale and Northline Urban Works. He read it. He put his head in his hands. "Scarlett, I can't. You don't know what she'll—" "Yes, you can," I said, my voice hard. "You can sign this, or you can come to the hearing next week, and I will have Nolan put you on the stand. You will be asked, under oath, if this is your signature in my notebook, you will be asked, under oath, if you saw her sign the release. You can tell the truth then, in front of a judge, or you can tell it now. This is the last receipt. Dad, sign it." He looked at me, his face a mask of weakness and shame. He picked up the pen. His hand was shaking so badly he could barely hold it, but he signed his name. I took the affidavit and left him there. I took it straight to a notary public and had his signature verified and stamped. I knew Kitteridge would find out. I knew my father would go home and confess. The explosion was inevitable. It came that night. Valerie, realizing she had lost her husband's support, realizing her entire original founder narrative had been legally detonated by the one witness she thought she controlled, went completely unhinged. She went on a social media tirade. No more coded language. No more broken heart. This was pure venom. Scarlett Hale is a sociopath. She is manufacturing a me the victim narrative by forging documents and threatening her own father into signing lies. She assaulted me, and now she is trying to buy her way out of it. She is a liar and a fraud. Me the victim. The hashtag was the last gasp of a dying narrative. My phone lit up. Investors. The bank. My leasing agent. "Scarlett, are you seeing this?" I took a deep breath. I did not reply to Valerie. I did not issue a counterstatement. I did not engage. I logged into the investor data room. I uploaded one new file. I named it B Section G, Affidavit of Derek Hale. I added one simple, cold line to the public statement of fact on my website. An additional witness affidavit has been added to the document portal. The community could read her frantic, all-caps rage, or they could read his sworn, notarized testimony. I let the receipts do the talking. My silence was louder than her screams. The courtroom was cold, all gray marble and fluorescent light. It was packed. The Shoreline Ledger had a reporter in the front row. A dozen of Valerie's anonymous online supporters were in the back, notebooks out. My entire development team sat on my side, a silent wall of support. I sat next to Nolan. My hands were folded on the table. I felt calm. The adrenaline was gone, replaced by a cold, hard focus. This was not a family reunion. It was a legal proceeding. Valerie was across the aisle with Rance Kitteridge. She was dressed in a modest gray suit, a stark contrast to her Thanksgiving cashmere. She looked like a grieving widow. My father sat 2 rows behind her, staring at his hands, a man hollowed out. "All rise," the bailiff called. The judge entered and sat. She was a no-nonsense woman in her 60s with sharp eyes. She looked at the file in front of her with open annoyance. This is the hearing on the motion for a protective order by Miss Scarlett Hale, and the countersuit by Mrs. Valerie Hale, alleging co-ownership and fraud. Mr. Kitteridge, your client filed the countersuit. You may begin. Kitteridge was a showman. He practically bounded to the lectern. Your Honor, he started, his voice dripping with synthetic sympathy. We are here today because of a tragedy, a family torn apart by greed. My client, Valerie Hale, is the victim. She is the godmother of Northline Urban Works, the woman who provided the seed capital, the love, and the support that built this company. He produced his first exhibit. It was a framed copy of the original EIN registration, the 9-year-old paper. This, Your Honor, is the original registration. You will note 2 names, Hale and Hale. This was always a partnership. He then produced a second document, an email, printed out and blown up on poster board. It was from me, dated 7 years ago. Thank you for the advice on the lease, Val. It read, You were right. I couldn't have navigated this without you. I couldn't have navigated this without you, Kitteridge repeated, letting the words hang in the air. From the founder's own mouth, this was a partnership, until greed poisoned the well, until Miss Scarlett Hale, in an act of profound betrayal, decided to lock her own mother out of the empire they built together. He went on, painting a picture of me as a volatile, cruel usurper. He brought up the trespass, claiming it was a rightful inspection. He brought up Thanksgiving, painting Valerie as a mother defending herself from her drunken, violent daughter. The judge just listened, her face impassive. When he finished, she looked at Nolan. Mr. Pike, your response? Nolan stood. He didn't walk to the lectern. He simply placed his hand on the laptop bag at his feet. Your Honor, Mr. Kitteridge is a fine storyteller. I prefer to deal in facts. May I direct your attention to the projector? The courtroom lights dimmed slightly. The projector whirred to life. The first image was not a document. It was a calendar. Miss Kitteridge's entire case rests on documents and emails that are between 7 and 9 years old, Nolan began, his voice clipping and precise. His entire argument ignores one crucial, intervening event. He clicked. A new document filled the screen. It was the amended and restated operating agreement. This is the governing document of Northline Urban Works, LLC, filed with the Secretary of State 2 years ago. File number 338. Nolan used a laser pointer, its red dot landing on my signature, and then on the one beneath it. It is signed, Your Honor, by my client as sole member, and it is also signed by Valerie Hale, acknowledging her release. Kitteridge jumped to his feet. Objection! That document was signed under duress. It was a formality. A formality that was notarized? Nolan asked coolly, clicking again. The image zoomed in on the notary's crimped seal and the county clerk's timestamp. A formality that was filed with the state? A formality, Your Honor, that was preceded by this? He clicked again. The wire transfer receipt for $20,000. He clicked again. The notarized letter of release. He clicked again. The bank statement showing the funds clearing Valerie's personal account. He clicked again. My father's sworn, notarized affidavit, confirming he had witnessed the entire transaction. This is not a partnership, Your Honor, Nolan said, his voice cutting through the silence. This is a simple case of seller's remorse, 9 years too late. Kitteridge was sputtering. My client was misled. She believed it was temporary. Then let's talk about more recent events, Nolan said. Let's talk about Thanksgiving. He clicked. The medical report from the urgent care clinic filled the screen. Contusion, left zygomatic arch, consistent with blunt force trauma. He clicked again. The toxicology report. Blood alcohol content, 0.00%. This, Nolan said, is the report from my client's medical examination, conducted 1 hour after she fled her father's home. It shows the injury she sustained, and it proves, definitively, that Mrs. Hale's public claim that my client was drunk and violent is a malicious, provable lie. It is defamation, plain and simple. Valerie was white. She was staring at the toxicology report as if it were a snake. And finally, Nolan said, since Mr. Kitteridge's clients are fond of recording edited videos, we secured the full, unedited version of the event. This is from the neighbor's doorbell camera. Mr. Henderson, who was standing on the porch. He played the video. It was grainy, shot from a low angle, but it was undeniable. There was the sound of the crash. There was my voice, clear, not yelling. And then there was Valerie's voice, a raw shriek. In front of my family! Then the sharp crack of the slap, followed a second later by the doorbell ringing. The video showed me walking out, calm, not running, while Valerie began to scream. She attacked me! After I was already on the lawn. The judge watched the clip, her face hardening. She turned her eyes to Valerie. Nolan wasn't finished. We have established the pattern of fraud. We have established the assault. Now let's establish the conspiracy. He turned to Chase, who was sitting behind Valerie. Your Honor, I would like to call Chase Hale to the stand. Kitteridge leaped up. Objection! He is not a party to this. He is a party to the protective order, the judge snapped, and he is a party to the fraud. Take the stand, Mr. Hale. Chase looked like he was going to be sick. He shuffled to the stand. Nolan approached him. Mr. Hale, do you recognize this? He put a document on the monitor in front of Chase. It was the email, the forged Northline letterhead. This is an email you sent to a Northline furniture vendor, correct? On letterhead you faked? Attempting to procure $50,000 of goods on my client's account? Chase's face was ashen. We were just getting a quote. Is this your signature, Mr. Hale? The one you forged to look like my client's head of procurement? I don't... Mr. Hale, Nolan said, his voice like a whip. You are under oath, and I have a copy of the criminal warning letter for forgery and wire fraud that I sent to your attorney. Would you like me to enter that into the record as well? No, Chase said, panicked. Okay, yes, I sent it, but my mom said, she said it was our company. She said I had a right. Thank you, Mr. Hale. You've confirmed the conspiracy. No further questions. Nolan sat down. The case was over. We had won. But then, something I didn't expect happened. Your Honor, a voice called from the back of the gallery. A man in a dark suit stood up. I apologize for the interruption. My name is Thomas Boyle. I am General Counsel for the Whitford Civic Trust. We have filed a motion to appear as a third party, as we have evidence that bears directly on the plaintiff's claims of good faith. The judge looked stunned. Kitteridge looked blindsided. Valerie just looked confused. I'll allow it, the judge said. Her curiosity piqued. Mr. Boyle walked forward and handed a single, bound document to the clerk, who passed it to the judge. Your Honor, Boyle said, my client, the trust, is currently in negotiations for a $30 million public works project adjacent to the defendant's property. This document is a copy of an internal compliance investigation, opened last week. It contains, among other things, emails from the plaintiff, Mrs. Valerie Hale. Valerie's head snapped up. In which Mrs. Hale uses her senior position at the trust to illegally pressure the contractor review board, attempting to funnel the city's contract to her son, Mr. Chase Hale. Chase sank in his chair. It also contains, Boyle continued, emails where Mrs. Hale falsely represents herself to our board as a co-owner of Miss Scarlett Hale's property, creating a massive, undisclosed conflict of interest. And finally, it contains an anonymous whistleblower report detailing an attempt by Mrs. Hale to solicit a 10% kickback on the contract. A collective gasp went through the courtroom. Kitteridge's mouth was open. We are not here to comment on the family dispute, Boyle said. We are here because the plaintiff, Valerie Hale, has used this false claim of ownership in an attempt to defraud the city of Ravenshaw and compromise the integrity of the Whitford Civic Trust. We submit these documents to demonstrate her pattern of behavior and her utter lack of good faith." Boyle sat down. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. The judge looked at the report. She looked at Kitteridge. She looked at Valerie. Her face was dark with contempt. "Mr. Kitteridge," the judge said, her voice dangerously quiet, "this is not an inheritance dispute. This is not a partnership dissolution. This is a documented, systematic, and now, it seems, criminal attempt to seize a private company based on expired paperwork and outright lies. It is one of the most flagrant cases of bad faith litigation I have ever seen." She took a deep breath. "I am going to recess for 10 minutes. I strongly advise you to use that time to discuss with your client the merits of immediately withdrawing her countersuit, because if I am forced to rule on it, I will not only dismiss it with prejudice, I will grant every sanction Mr. Pike has asked for, and I will entertain a motion to have your client pay Miss Hale's entire legal bill. This hearing is in recess." The gavel cracked. The judge stood and swept out of the room. The room exploded in noise, but I just watched Valerie. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't look at my father, or at Chase, or at her lawyer. Her face was stone. She stood up, rigid, and walked straight out of the courtroom, pushing past the Ledger reporter. Kitteridge, his face pale and furious, scrambled after her. The war was over. The Ledger headline that evening was simple: "Receipts, documents, not tears, decide Hale dispute." I didn't go out to celebrate. I went back to the Rivermark lofts. I walked up to the 3rd floor, to the office Chase had been measuring for himself. At 5 p.m., my top leasing agent met me there. I signed the lease, giving the entire floor to a female-led architectural firm. The ink was still wet as I handed the pen back. "Welcome to Northline," I said. The courtroom was not an ending, it was a detonation. I walked out into the shockwave, the silence of the hallways buzzing in my ears. Rance Kitteridge, his face the color of old parchment, had mumbled a request to withdraw his client's countersuit before the judge even returned to the bench. It was a quiet, pathetic surrender. But the explosion had already happened. The shrapnel was in the air, and I spent the next 2 weeks watching it land. The first and largest piece hit Valerie. The Whitford Civic Trust did not move with quiet discretion. Graham Whitford's general counsel, Mr. Boyle, had returned from the courthouse and immediately convened an emergency board meeting. That same afternoon, the trust issued a public statement announcing a formal, full-scope investigation into a senior director for gross ethical misconduct and potential conflicts of interest. They didn't use her name. They didn't have to. The Shoreline Ledger, now desperate to be on the winning side of the truth, ran the story with her photo. 2 days later, an anonymous source from within the trust confirmed to the Ledger what I already suspected. Valerie Hale was on immediate mandatory administrative leave. She had been locked out of her email accounts. Her company cell phone had been remotely wiped and bricked. Her access key card was deactivated. She had been escorted from the building by security, carrying her personal items in a cardboard box. The source added that the board was aggressively pursuing a for-cause termination to avoid paying her severance, based on the public court testimony regarding the kickback scheme and the attempt to defraud the city. Graham Whitford was not just cleaning his house, he was fumigating it. The media, led by the Ledger, pivoted so hard they nearly snapped. Having been humiliated by Valerie's lies, they now embraced my receipts with religious fervor. They launched a 3-part series titled, "The Paperwork Speaks: Anatomy of a Corporate Takeover." They analyzed every document Nolan had filed, treating the notarized release and my father's affidavit like the Rosetta Stone. I had become, overnight, an unwilling icon of contractual integrity. The fallout radiated outward, hitting the minor players who had orbited Valerie's plot. The furniture vendor, emboldened by the public testimony, filed a civil suit against Chase for fraud and forgery. His lawyer, seeing no defense, immediately began negotiating a settlement. My stepbrother, who had dreamed of a future studio, was now liquidating his own contracting equipment to pay for the furniture he had tried to steal. And Cole, the live-streaming brother-in-law, saw his small-time social media contracts vanish. The local car dealership and the microbrewery that paid him to post reviews didn't want their brands associated with a public story of trespassing and perjury. His influencer career was over before it began. Then there was my father. He did not call. He did not text. A week after the hearing, a thick cream-colored envelope arrived at my office. It was addressed to Scarlett Hale. Not Scarlett. His handwriting was shaky. Inside was a single sheet of heavy cardstock. It was not a plea for reconciliation. It was not an excuse. It was not a request to see him for Christmas. It was just 3 sentences. Scarlett, I am sorry. I failed you as a father. I was a coward, and I let her rewrite a truth I knew. I am proud of the woman you became in spite of me. It was the most honest and the most devastating thing he had ever written to me. I read it once, then I folded it, put it in the back of my desk drawer, and closed it. It was not a new beginning. It was a receipt for a debt that could never be paid, and I filed it away as such. I did not celebrate. I did not rest. I built. The crisis had exposed a systemic weakness, and I intended to cauterize it. I called a meeting with Nolan and my chief financial officer. I'm restructuring the Northline corporate charter, I announced. Effective next quarter, I am pledging 2% of all net profits from every property, in perpetuity, to a new foundation. We launched it a week later. I called it the Women Build Boundaries Fund. It was not a charity. It was a war chest. It provided grants to female entrepreneurs in real estate, construction, and tech, for one purpose only: to pay for legal services. It was a fund to pay for ironclad operating agreements. It was a fund to secure patents and trademarks. It was a fund for forensic accountants to protect their equity before a crisis. Not after. I was taking the weapons Valerie had used against me: the expired documents, the blurred lines, the appeal to family, and I was funding an arsenal for every woman who came after me. The business world, which had been holding its breath, exhaled in my favor. Mark Bishop, my banker at Ravenshore First, who had threatened to freeze my credit line, requested an in-person meeting. He walked into my office, his face a careful mask of professional contrition. Scarlett, he said, I'm here to recalibrate our relationship. We've been following the court proceedings, and the board is, frankly, impressed. Your risk management protocols are a case study. The data room, the immediate transparency, the documentation. You've proven that Northline is structurally impenetrable to the one risk we can't underwrite: internal chaos. I just showed my work, Mark, I said, sipping my coffee. You did more than that. You turned a liability into an asset. The board has reviewed your file. We are not only fully restoring your line of credit, we are increasing it by 30%. He slid a new term sheet across the desk. And we are lowering your interest rate by 0.5%. Effective immediately. You've proven you're our most secure asset. My receipts had just made me money. The walls were closing in on Valerie from all sides. Her termination from the trust was all but certain. The district attorney's office, prompted by the trust's investigation, was now informally reviewing the kickback allegations. She was toxic. She made one last, desperate move. She tried to go back to her only weapon, the media. She contacted a bottom-feeding freelance reporter, spinning a new, wild conspiracy: that I was the one who had framed her, that I had conspired with Graham Whitford, trading secrets to get her fired so I could secure the Dock Street parking deal for myself. It was a pathetic Hail Mary. The reporter, sensing a trap, called the Whitford Civic Trust's legal department for comment. Mr. Boyle did not just deny the story. He informed the reporter, in no uncertain terms, that Valerie Hale was the subject of a criminal referral originating from the trust, and that if the reporter printed one word of her defamatory and fictitious claims, the trust would sue both the reporter and his publication into oblivion. Valerie had been legally muzzled. Nolan forwarded me the email chain from the reporter, who was now desperately trying to make friends with us. I didn't reply. I simply logged into the Northline data room. I uploaded the new civil complaint against Chase. I uploaded the new, improved term sheet from the bank. I uploaded the articles of incorporation for the Women Build Boundaries Fund. Then I updated the public-facing statement of fact with one final sterile line. Supplemental documents D through G, judicial and financial, have been added to the portal. The record was complete. That night, my phone rang. It was late, past 11. The number was blocked. I answered. Miss Hale? I recognized the voice, Graham Whitford. Mr. Whitford. He sounded tired, but deeply satisfied. I am calling as a courtesy. Our internal investigation has concluded. The board has voted. We will be making an official public statement tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. He didn't need to tell me the results of the vote. I knew. This was the final domino. The court had handled the property, the bank had handled the finance, but the final nail, the one that would close the coffin on her reputation and end this for good, was never mine to hammer. I thought of the hook I had scribbled in my notebook all those weeks ago. The thing that had kept me going. Then her boss. This was it, the last piece of the mechanism. The lock was about to turn. Thank you for the notification, Mr. Whitford, I said calmly. Thank you for the documents, Miss Hale, he replied. And he hung up. I looked out the window of the Rivermark lofts. The city was quiet. The war was over. All that was left was the morning's execution. I woke up before the alarm. At 9 a.m. sharp, I had the Ravenshore newsfeed open on my monitor. It was not a quiet press release. It was a full public press conference. Graham Whitford stood at a podium bearing the Whitford Civic Trust seal. He looked severe, professional, and completely in command. The Ledger reporter, I noted, was in the front row. Good morning, Graham began, his voice crisp and amplified by the microphones. The Trust has concluded an internal investigation regarding serious ethical violations discovered within our procurement division. He did not waste time. Effective immediately, Ms. Valerie Hale's employment with the Whitford Civic Trust has been terminated, for cause. He laid it out with surgical precision. The investigation confirmed gross violations of our mandatory ethics policy, a severe and undisclosed conflict of interest, and the use of her senior position in a direct attempt to improperly influence the public contract procurement process. A reporter shouted, Does this relate to the Rivermark Lofts dispute and the allegations made in court? Graham's eyes were cold, like steel. This relates to the integrity of the Whitford Civic Trust. We based our decision on internal documents, sworn testimony from other employees, and verified whistleblower reports. He was confirming the kickback scheme without ever using the word. Furthermore, he continued, and the room went silent. Given the evidence of attempted fraud and forgery uncovered during our review, we have forwarded the complete investigatory file to the District Attorney's Office for their review. We will be cooperating fully with any subsequent criminal investigation. It was a public execution. He had not only fired her, he had handed her over to the District Attorney. Another reporter called out, Mr. Whitford, does this formal termination vindicate Scarlett Hale's claims? Graham adjusted his microphone. This was the moment. He could have praised me, defended me, or mentioned my name. He did none of them, and it was the most powerful move he could have made. The Trust does not comment on private family disputes, he said, his voice absolute. Our commitment is not to individuals, but to the truth. We believe in transparency, we believe in compliance, and we believe that public trust is built on verifiable, legally sound documentation. Thank you. He walked off the stage. He did not have to say my name. He had just told the entire city, in no uncertain terms, that my receipts were the only truth that mattered. He had used my own strategy, cold, hard facts, to protect his organization and, in doing so, had validated my entire fight. With Valerie's public implosion, the final court date was a formality, but it was a necessary one. Rance Kitteridge did not even show up. He sent a terrified-looking junior associate from his firm. The judge was swift. She officially granted the permanent protective order I had requested, barring Valerie and Chase from coming within 500 feet of me, my home, or any Northline property. Then, she addressed the countersuit that Kitteridge had already tried to withdraw. "The plaintiff's withdrawal is noted," the judge said, her voice sharp with disdain. "However, this court finds that the plaintiff's suit was filed frivolously, vexatiously, and in unambiguous bad faith. Therefore, I am formally dismissing Mrs. Hale's entire countersuit with prejudice." That was the kill shot. With prejudice meant she could never, ever file this suit again. It was legally dead, forever. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "this court will be granting Mr. Pike's motion for sanctions. The plaintiff, Mrs. Valerie Hale, and Mr. Chase Hale are hereby ordered, jointly and severally, to pay Northline Urban Works, LLC, for all legal fees and costs associated with defending against this abusive litigation." I felt Nolan sit up just a little straighter beside me. It was not just a win, it was a repayment. They would be forced to write me a check for every hour I had spent fighting their lies. Finally, the judge issued the injunction. Valerie Hale and Chase Hale are hereby enjoined from making any further public statements, on social media or otherwise, claiming any ownership stake in Northline Urban Works. They are further barred from contacting any Northline vendor, employee, or financial partner. This hearing is concluded. The gavel fell. It was, finally, done. I did not wait. I did not celebrate. I went straight from the courthouse to the bank. With the judge's injunction in hand and the public vindication from the trust, the last cloud over Northline was gone. I sat in a polished conference room with Mark Bishop and signed the final documents for the new, larger, lower-interest refinancing of Rivermark Lofts. My capital was secure. My next meeting was with the city. The Dock Street parking garage project had been thrown into chaos by the Whitford Trust scandal. Graham, quite properly, had withdrawn the trust's involvement entirely to avoid any appearance of impropriety. But the city still needed the garage, and I still needed the parking. I did not go in as a supplicant. I went in as a partner. I, along with 2 other local development firms, including the female-led architectural group I had just leased the 3rd floor to, formed a new, clean joint venture. We presented a new plan to the city, one that was transparent, fully funded by private capital from our new credit lines, and had 0 conflicts of interest. We signed the preliminary deal an hour later. The garage was being built, but this time, it was not built on Valerie's schemes. It was built on my terms. The silence from Valerie's side was total. The social media accounts went dark. The burner accounts disappeared. The DA's office had confirmed they were reviewing her file for potential criminal charges, and that threat had finally completely muzzled her. Except for once. 2 weeks later, my phone rang, a private number. I looked at it, then let the call ring, until it went to voicemail. I knew who it was. A minute later, the notification popped up. 1 new voicemail. It was 1 minute long. The digital icon told me 1 minute of a final, desperate plea, or perhaps 1 minute of silent, frustrated rage. I stared at it. I felt the old familiar knot of guilt and anger. I felt the pull of the child who had just wanted her family's approval. I pressed the save icon. I did not press play. I did not need to hear the words, whether it was an apology, a curse, or a sob. It did not matter. Her voice had no power over me anymore. I saved the unopened, unheard message in my digital vault. It was the last receipt, and it would remain unread, filed away in a digital safe. The next day, I installed the plaque. It was a simple, heavy brass plate, mounted on the Italian marble wall of the Rivermark lobby, right where her tacky Hale Legacy banner had hung. It did not have my name. It did not have the company's name. It had just 3 words. Boundaries build empires. My empire was now secure. It was time to reinforce the walls. I made my first hire for the Women Build Boundaries Fund. I called Mara. You were the only one who told me the truth. I told her over coffee. You were the only one who sent a warning. You've been trying to get out of that toxic part of the family for years. I'm a paralegal. Scarlett, not a fundraiser, she said, stirring her tea. I don't need a paralegal, I said. I need a communications director. I need someone who knows exactly how families like ours use whispers and emotional blackmail to destroy. I need you to run the fund's outreach. I need you to teach other women how to fight back. She started the following Monday. My next move was internal. I called Rhett, my building manager, into my office. He was still pale, still terrified of me since the day he had let Valerie in. Rhett, you failed, I said bluntly. You failed to protect this asset. You let emotion and a 9-year-old piece of paper override your duty to this company. He started to stammer, to apologize. I held up a hand. But, I said, you are the only person who will never let that happen again. You have learned this lesson in the most painful way possible. I'm promoting you. He looked at me, stunned. I'm promoting you to Director of Asset Security for all of Northline. You are going to be in charge of retraining every single employee, and you are going to be the one who writes the new protocol. A week later, Northline Urban Works published its new mandatory access protocol. It was distributed to every employee, tenant, and vendor. It was a simple, 2-step rule. 1. No individual gains access to any property, data, or file without a real-time verified digital authorization from my office. 2. This rule applies to everyone. No exceptions, especially for family. The system was now locked. The first grant from the Women Build Boundaries Fund went out a month later. It went to a small group of young female architects in Ravenshore who were fighting their former mentor over the rights to their own designs. A week after they won their case, I received a thank you note. It was handwritten. Dear Ms. Hale, it read, we used the grant to hire a forensic data recovery expert. He found the original, time-stamped design files on our old server. We won the injunction. Thank you for giving us the tools to fight. You taught us to stop arguing and just say, if you have the receipt, we can talk. I framed the note. It hangs in my office now, next to the Rivermark blueprints. That night, I stayed late. The building was quiet. The new architectural firm was working late on the 3rd floor, their lights glowing. The new tenants were moving into the penthouse. The lobby was secure. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of my office, looking down at the city. I saw the Dock Street site, now fenced off, ready for the excavation of our new, clean project. I looked at my reflection in the glass. The bruise was long gone. The anger was gone. The fear was gone. All that was left was the work. The Rivermark Lofts was no longer a battleground. It was not a prize to be won or a target for revenge. It was just mine, a symbol of rightful, documented, and fully paid for ownership. I knew this would not be the last fight. The world is full of Valeries. It is full of people who believe that what you build is theirs for the taking, that your boundaries are just suggestions. But the next time someone comes for what I have built, they will not just be met by me. They will be met by my system. They will be met by my protocols. They will be met by a fortress of paperwork, and I will be standing on the wall, holding the receipts. Thank you all for listening to my story. I would love to see where you all are tuning in from. So please comment down below, share your thoughts, subscribe to Lila Revenge Stories, like the video, and support us even more by hitting that hype button so this story can be heard by more people.